Just when I think the NBA offseason is over, the Minnesota Timberwolves make the trade of the summer. In case you've missed it somehow, the Minnesota Timberwolves and the New York Knicks have made a deal, karl-Anthony Towns for Julius Randle, Donte DiVincenzo, and a draft pick. So this obviously changes things for the outlook of the New York Knicks in particular, but I think that the Minnesota Timberwolves idea on it is actually pretty slept on. Just some insider baseball here. I am doing these videos daily, but if there's ever a chance that I have to record multiple videos in one day, I will do that because I have a full-time job and have other responsibilities. I can't necessarily do a video every day. So this video, the video that was supposed to come out today, was for the Timberwolves, but the video was done like 5 or 6 days ago. And because of this news that dropped last night, I have to redo the whole video, which is a little annoying, but I think it'll be worth it. One of my friends, Riley, is a Minnesota Timberwolves fan, and I've already kind of gauged with him how he feels about it. He wasn't necessarily the biggest karl-Anthony Towns fan, so he was maybe a little too excited to see him go to the Knicks, but the consensus on whether or not this was a good trade is kind of up in the air. I'll talk about the impact for the Knicks whenever we get to that video, but for the Timberwolves, this is going to be a little bit of an adjustment period. Julius Randle, there's a good chance, isn't going to start the season. He's not going to be healthy enough to start the season. So Naz Reid will have to take the place of karl-Anthony Towns within that offense. And I think for anyone who has watched Minnesota Timberwolves basketball over the last couple of years, we've seen this steady increase and steady ascension of Naz Reid. So I think that he would fit into that karl-Anthony Towns role pretty well. When Julius Randle comes back, what do? I saw some lunatic on Twitter suggest that we run Julius Randle at the 3, so the starting 5 would be Mike Conley, Anthony Edwards, Julius Randle, Naz Reid, and Rudy Gobert, and I definitely don't think that that would work out, but the Minnesota Timberwolves do have a couple of questions to be answered between now and whenever Julius Randle does come back. Maybe 2 months ago now, I put out a video suggesting a bunch of trades that could happen to shake up the league, and in that video I suggested that karl-Anthony Towns did get traded. It was to Milwaukee in that example, but in that trade, because of the absence of karl-Anthony Towns, I believe that Naz Reid would have been able to fit right into that role and put up similar numbers to what karl-Anthony Towns did. But now that you're doing this star-for-star trade, I'm not sure what they're going to do. Do you still want to have Naz Reid be this Super Six, be this Sixth Man of the Year candidate? Or do you want to eventually bring him into the fold and maybe tell Julius Randle he needs to go to the bench? There's a pretty broad swath of people on the internet that believe that the Timberwolves lost this trade. They significantly got worse. And I'm not sure that that's actually what we need to be talking about. Because yes, you did lose a star and you did lose a dynamic offensive piece in karl-Anthony Towns. But let's not pretend like Julius Randle isn't a dog. Let's not pretend like Julius Randle didn't have an all-NBA season a couple years ago. And let's not pretend like Donte DiVincenzo is going to be one of the best three-point shooters and probably bench pieces in the entire league. So yeah, you did lose some star power on the face of it, but if you're looking at this from a 8-9-man rotation standpoint, the Timberwolves still look pretty good. Your starting 5 is probably going to look something like Mike Conley, Anthony Edwards, Jaden McDaniels, Julius Randle, and Rudy Gobert. And while that does have some spacing issues within it, we're going to make up for it off of our bench unit with Rob Dillingham, Donte DiVincenzo, and Naz Reid. And that's not even to mention someone like Nickeil Alexander-Walker, who had a breakout season last year and proved to be really valuable to that team. And maybe I'm of the minority opinion here, but they also have Luka Garza on that team, who was a college national player of the year a couple years ago, and I think that given the opportunity, he could show what he could really do on a basketball court. That little bench trio of Rob Dillingham, Naz Reid, and Donte DiVincenzo is really interesting to me because without looking at it, that's probably a pretty impressive bench trio out of the entire league, probably a top 7, top 8 bench trio. And again, there may be a situation where the Julius Randle experiment in the starting 5 does not work out and you're going to have to move Naz from the bench to the starting role. But even then, having someone of Julius Randle's caliber as a bench player is going to be super, super valuable to that Timberwolves team. Even with this giant trade happening, the most important piece for this upcoming season for the Timberwolves is going to be how does Anthony Edwards continue his stardom. Anthony Edwards is obviously a very likable piece. He's very marketable. He is on all of the social media stuff for the NBA. He's a very exciting player to watch. That kind of dwarfs his inconsistencies and his inefficiencies, especially when it came to the playoffs last year. There were times where Anthony Edwards, because he's so athletic and because he's so physically dominant, that he had every single ability to move past his defender, to get by his defender, go downhill, and dunk on somebody. But in that series against the Mavericks in particular, he decided to settle for long-range twos and three-pointers. And I have to imagine that if he doesn't do that, maybe we're talking about a different Western Conference Finals champion. And again, not to take away from who Anthony Edwards is as a player, but eventually, maybe not this year, maybe not even next year, but eventually we're going to have to talk about him being inefficient and inconsistent when it matters most. But if we continue down this line of stardom, I don't see a reason why the Timberwolves can't sort of repeat what they were able to do last year, maybe be in the Western Conference Finals, and who knows, depending on how the playoffs work out and how injury luck happens, maybe they're in the NBA Finals. What do you think of the Karl-Anthony Towns trade? Let me know down in the comments. Check out my link tree while you're at it. Be kind. Tell somebody you love them. I'll see you tomorrow.